and welcome. Yes, it is the crossover that Sean asked for, and I think everyone else is going to enjoy it as well. My name is Monty Dean. We are on Studio A and Hawk's Nest Studio C at the same time, and I think, gentlemen, if we do well, we can take over Studio B, and we shall fulfill the prophecy. Helping out Sean, hey, and if you've enjoyed the last hour of Strange Universe, please go to freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio. Click on the Patreon button and donate what you can. We don't accept children. We're not the New World Order. They're yours. Deal with it. And then go into the merchandising tab and buy T-shirts and caps and everything else like that. So where
our adrenochrome market. What's wrong with you?
Oh, damn it. I knew it. It's my first mistake. Write that down.
Make big bucks off that stuff.
See, I love children, but I can't eat a whole one. Anyway, then pop into the chat room and see they're talking about the last show. And, oh, geez, it's fun, but I won't mention it on this show. This is Planet Collingwood as well as Strange Universe, as well as, it's Strange Planet Collingwood Universe. My name is Monty Dean. As I said, I have my little Planet Collingwood, but it resides in a strange universe. And the man, the myth, the legend, Sean David Morton has joined us. Sean, how are ye?
I'm okay. I'm just surviving. But thank you so much for helping me out tonight. I was just having.
No, that's all right. And I'll introduce our other guests so you actually have some idea who they are. We have Bruce MacDonald, a ex-Canadian living in Costa Rica. How are you, Bruce?
Hello. I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent. That boom mic just rocks.
Some ongoing arguing with my wife, but other than that, I'm good, Monty.
Well, human, eh?
Never heard of Costa Rica?
Do not marry a Latino, folks. They're stronger than us.
Yeah. My grandma used to say, never marry a woman who can kick your ass.
Oh yeah. And my wife is mountain raised and she's native, and she's super tough, man. Her nickname in the family is Ana Gabo, who was before the big boxer now in Costa Rica was the world champion in her weight class. She's dummied quite a few people, my wife.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll talk about the Depp Heard trial then.
Perfect segue.
Oh, yes, but before that, we must welcome our Raz. Where are you, Raz? Raz, ladies and gentlemen, how are you?
Good. It's Mauritius, and Mauritian, yeah, you spelled it well.
Okay.
Buy a boom mic, you cheap bastard.
What's a boom mic?
It's a microphone on a stick.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have that.
Yeah, and right. Sean, you'll love this gag. You've got boom operator, and then Sade released what I can't remember, smooth operator, and hours of fun on crews and sets, and like boom operator. Shut up.
Is that everybody, Monty? Is it just me and Raz?
Yeah, just Raz, yourself, and Sean, and Hawk's Nest, and Studio Kurt and
Okay, can I talk to Sean for a bit?
No.
Can I have your permission to do that, Monty?
Yes.
I'll PayPal you $1.
Yeah, a shiny dollar, not these dull dollars. I want a shiny dollar.
Shiny Canadian loony.
Yeah. Sean, on Monday last week, when I filled in for the first time, actually Memorial Day, I actually had Bruce come on, and we bantered, and it went well. And Bruce was the gentleman I was telling you about who wrote a book about Stardust Ranch.
Oh, you talking about Stargate Ranch?
No, Stardust.
Buckeye, Arizona, John Edmonds, the man who decapitated a gray with a samurai sword.
Oh, yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah, he passed February 28th, by the way.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, he was a good guy. He was a funny guy. But it was I'm not sure. Did they bury the alien head with him?
Nobody can find that alien head, but I think he was cremated too.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think he was cremated. But listen, I got to talk to you about a couple things, Sean, and I don't want to pick any scabs or anything. I know you've been through a lot, but we have a remarkable amount of things in common, and we've never really met. First of all, in 2001, I went through a huge court case in Canada. Now, I wasn't the defendant. The defendant was a Calabrese gentleman named Adelki De Palma. but he had the exact same charge as you, except substitute the United States government for the Canadian government. Conspiracy to defraud the Canadian government. I wanted to reach out to you when you were going through that nonsense, but you seemed surrounded with some capable people, so I kept my mouth shut, and I didn't know if Canadian...
Which I was not, but go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was enough similarity between Canadian and American law, but my friend, he's about 75 now, but he ended up getting the highest penalty ever given to an individual taxpayer in Canadian history. He is now studied at law schools. Now, what he did was he put together an investment schedule for 5 years for a mining operation in Guyana. And it was legitimate. I went over to Guyana and I went in the jungle. I chartered a single engine plane, did a video. I was the principal defense witness. I was on the stand for 3 days. How did I get in this? The woman I was married to at the time had invested with the guy. So he had about 110 investors, mainly Italians and Portuguese in the West End of Toronto, very simple people. And the Canada Revenue Agency went after them with a sledgehammer. And really, I'm grateful for the experience. It broke up that marriage and everything, the stress of it. But I'm grateful for the experience because that's what really woke me up. Was actually going through a trial. And I have a journalism degree from Ryerson University in Canada, which many say is better than Columbia. Yes. I'm not a fool. And I mean, I was so disgusted when this trial finished and the lies and the bullshit that Canada Revenue pulled. So what he did was he got people to commit to a 5-year investment plan. Okay. But he wrote off all the expenses in the first 2 years. And they came in and they said, well, this was all intentional. You're not really mining. And they just completely lied. In the 110 investors or so, it broke up half the marriages. It was so stressful. It went on for 6 years. And then when your charges came up and I read them, conspiracy to defraud the United States government, I had almost kind of like a contact trauma just re-experiencing it. But I wanted to say that I've been following you for quite a while, and I read the first and the second Sands of Time. I haven't finished the series, and I enjoyed them quite a bit, by the way. And I've been listening to you on the radio, and you've done a lot for people, man. And I wanted to say they did you really dirty, not only in the courtroom, but what they did to you after you got into the penal system. And I'm telling you, brother, when you pass from this world, your afterlife review is going to be like a Viking king going to Valhalla.
Thank you. I hope I get the shit that they hit on the
first. We'll set you on fire. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are the Northman.
Well, let me comment as far as your situation goes up there in Canada. That these were the last low kicks, dirty tricks, and rotten licks of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama against their enemies, I guess, because what happened was this was 2015, right before the 2016 elections. Probably understanding that there was a backlash of something. It wasn't just me. They rounded up every single person that was in, I guess, what you would call the freedom movement, or anybody that was talking about economics, or anybody was talking about the bond system, or basically just the entire illegal, messed up way that the monetary system is set up. And in my case, I was working with a CPA. And a guy who'd gotten, there were two CPAs in LA. There was Alexander Adams, and there was Jacqueline Coelho. And Alexander had gotten about $14 million back for his clients using what was called the 1099 OID process, original issue discount, in which there was a way to actually hold the banks accountable, because when you put, very simple way to put this, when you put $1 in a bank, the bank has the right to loan out that dollar, 99 cents out of that dollar, and then turn around and only pay you, interest of 2% or whatever. Which, if you did that in any other financial forum, if you did it with J.P. Morgan or any of these people, if you did that, they'd all go to prison. But the banks actually have their 16th Amendment Federal Reserve thing where they can basically just it's a license to steal. And so in my case, I filed. I was running a Forex deal. And, I turned $525,000, $300,000 of it being my money, into about $7 million. It was about $6.7 million. And then these people tried to turn around and claim that I was some kind of fraud or something, because I'm like, wait a minute, if the money had been lost because the trader had didn't do directly what I told them to do, did the exact opposite of everything I told them to do, and lost the money. And that was the SEC. And the SEC, I beat them up hands down because, and that was a weird thing because I was tried in absentia. I was not allowed to appear. I was not allowed to get discovery out of that. And it was weird because then the judge ruled for the SEC to give them the face-saving aspect of it, and then turned around and said, well, my ruling isn't good for anywhere outside the lower tip of Manhattan. So literally from like 42nd Street to the Bay, I can't buy a house, and that was, and that entire thing, when they threw all this paperwork at me, by the way, the whole thing started with these SEC guys. They threw this paperwork at me and they said, where are you hiding $6.5 million? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it turned out my attorney looked at it and they'd subpoenaed the wrong company. It was a company that had the same name as us. But it was an LLC. It was called like 27 Investments or something. And the attorney looks at him and says, this isn't my client. You actually unconstitutionally, because these guys had the misfortune of banking with Bank of America. This isn't even us. And then they were like, so you know what they did then? They charged me with fraud because I claimed to be psychic, and being psychic is impossible. Therefore, I must be fraudulently doing something. How was I able to make all this money when I was a fraudulent remote viewing psychic? And that's what they claim. Now, of course, in investment law in the United States, it's interesting because if you guys invest $1 million with me, and I tell you that I put the Wall Street Journal, and there were guys that did this, I swear to God, they would take the Wall Street Journal and they would plaster it all over a wall. And this one guy had a monkey. This is absolutely true. This guy had a capuchin monkey, and they taught the monkey how to throw darts. And the monkey would they'd feed it, and come on, Bobo, and he would just throw darts, and they would invest in whatever the dart landed on.
Unbelievable.
And the monkey was doing 35% better than anybody else. Better. And they took him and they said, look, we told all our investors we had a monkey throwing darts, and they were down with it. And as long as you tell them this is how we're picking our investments with a monkey picking darts, then you're fine. And we told everybody in this that we were using remote viewing and that it was an experiment, and we made a bunch of money. And then I had a trader that decided he was going to go off the reservation and do the exact opposite. So let me finish my sentence. In 2015, 2016, because of Hillary Clinton, because of Barack Obama, they rounded up, just to give you an idea of this, they rounded up Tim Turner, who was head of the Southern Confederacy Alliance, because he was teaching people paperwork stuff. They rounded up Winston Shrout out of Oregon. The guy's like 75 years old. He's going to die in prison because he was helping people with bond processes that were actually working. Then they rounded up Rocky Hudson. Rocky Hudson was head of the Colorado Republic in Colorado, all because, and I was actually in prison with him, where we had conversations about this because he was trying to do writing checks on closed accounts, which is a whole big secret thing because the banks never close your accounts. They actually still leave them open and all that. Wow. So he wrote a closed account check to buy some motorcycles. And guy called him and said, why don't you come pick up your motorcycles? And Rocky said, well, have you gotten paid from those checks that I wrote you? He said, no, but come pick them up anyway. And I'm like, the FBI was on the other side of that call. And he says, no, I'm not picking up any merchandise or anything from you until you get paid. Well, then they hit him with conspiracy to defraud or whatever else, even though he never received anything. So it becomes conspiracy. Well, you thought about it, but you didn't actually do it. And I think I was charged with conspiracy to do a thing, literally. And then at the opening of the trial, the prosecutor stood up and said, well, Your Honor, there's no victims and there's no monetary loss to anybody. And I was like, well, then what the hell? I mean, I would really like to put the person accusing me on the stand. And they said, well, you can't do that because you're being accused by the United States. And I was like, well, the United States is a corporation. That's a pile of paper. And I would really like Mr. and Mrs. United States or Mr. and Mrs. IRS on the stand. And then as far as the tax stuff went, they put an IRS agent on the stand, and the judge said, no, you don't get to testify. This is not a tax evasion case. Sean Morton told you every dime he made over 5 years, he filed all the proper paperwork and whatever else. And this is the best one. The government puts an IRS woman on the stand, a big fat lady with red hair, looked like Bozo's lesbian wife. And she gets up there and she goes, well, you filed this and you filed that and you filed the other thing. I said, did you do my tax returns? Well, no. I said, Your Honor, this is hearsay then. She had no direct access to the evidence. I said, well, who did? Well, Maureen Green. I'm like, is there really a Maureen Green? Because all you people work under aliases like the mafia. I had to ask them what their real names were. And one guy who was, my name is Ted Henson. I said, you don't sound real American. Where are you from? I'm from Transylvania. I said, wait a minute, you're from Transylvania and you work for the IRS. Don't you find that a little weird? And because his real name was Theodore Kalupis, and they were all operating under these names. And the judge said, no, you don't get to testify because he told you every dime he made. And then with the fat bozo lady, I was like, well, do you know what a 1099A is? And she was like, yes. I said, what's the A stand for? Abandonment or what? Acquisition. So it's the paper you file at the end to get your money back from the banks, which the bank doesn't want to give you when you file this paperwork. She goes, well, that's about right. And I said, did you look at any of that? Because I filed all that, makes everything I did legal. And she goes, no, I was instructed not to look at that part of the file. Instructed by who? So your testimony has been coached by this lesbian bitch at the DOJ, Valerie Makowicz. So they told you not to look at evidence to give this testimony, which means your testimony is completely null and void. Well, that's about right.
Yeah, that's
and
kind of unbelievable.
And that's how the real thing. And here's the best thing that happened, because what I got accused of was also, supposedly fleeing sentencing. Well, I came into the court that morning. I handed him a whole bunch of paperwork that said, that for the appeal and that everything was going to the Supreme Court and it had been accepted by the Supreme Court. Well, the DOJ grabbed it and hustled that paperwork out of the courtroom and then made sure it wasn't filed until the following Friday, making it look like I hadn't appeared or I hadn't done anything, when the paperwork that I put in was actually going to delay it because I was going to be free while this whole thing was going on. So suddenly I'm the fugitive screaming, I didn't kill my wife. And
it wasn't me. It was the one armed accountant.
So when I went to Guyana to do my investigation over a week, I met with a lawyer there, and there was a lot of stuff. And one of the key witnesses in the Crown's case, we call it the Crown in the Commonwealth. Monty, you're aware of that, right? Mm-hmm. Don't run afoul of the Crown, Monty.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the Queen either. It's the corporation that's the Crown. Yeah.
Well, their key witness was a police sergeant on the Georgetown police force, and when I met him, he was driving a brand new $40,000 minibus, and I mean a salary. This was about 2001. I went over there, and a salary for a police officer in Georgetown, Guyana, was about $200 a month. The Canada Revenue Agency gave him a whack of money. When you start to peel the Band-Aids off these cases that the government's put together, they're unbelievably fraudulent. We're getting to a point now where you could ostensibly make the argument there's no law left. When you look at the way they've done Navarro now, the rationale for that, as I've heard it, was that sitting President Joe Biden stripped his predecessor, Donald Trump, of his executive privilege. How does that happen? You're basically saying the law changes every 4 years now. Like they seem to be, the more you study it, Sean and Raz and Monty, the more you study it, they seem to be fomenting chaos. They don't solve anything now. They don't solve crimes. They let the most dangerous of criminals go now in all the major cities, and they're fermenting chaos. To what end, I don't know. But
what is the plan? Because the guy behind it, here's what I think is funny. They always talk about how the white hats are doing things. The white hats are winning. And the white hats are coming. But where are they? Where the hell are they? I've taken on Wayne Willett or Juan O'Savin, who MSNBC did a piece on the other day, which is exactly what I thought was going to happen. They were going to build him up because, Wayne's basically just a fool now. And they were going to build him up as a straw man to just tear him down. And there was a whole piece on MSNBC, debunking Wayne Willett and Q and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, here it comes. Here's where they're going to make everybody in the Patriot movement look like. Because what it is, it's Stalin's The Trust. It's the thing that Stalin put together after the Russian Revolution, where he could draw out all his enemies and all his opponents and all the wealthy businessmen in the United States, like Henry Ford, who were trying to stop the Soviets from murdering everybody, and they pulled them all out and managed to kill everybody that was up against the revolution. And that's exactly what you're seeing with Michael Flynn and McHenry and Wayne Willett, Juan O'Savin, and all this. They've blunted the entire movement, if you will, by talking this complete bullshit. That,
like the whole QAnon thing is, it's used as a psyop where now. If you bring anything conspiracy fact or pattern recognition, you're QAnon. It's just a throwaway thing in society, like, you're insane. And right. It's the new conspiracy theorist, which was created back for JFK. I know about the trust because, Sean, you recommended a TV show called The Ace of Spies.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I own it on DVD.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's Sam Neill.
Yeah.
He's successful, so he's an Australian. He's actually from New Zealand, but he's successful. It is fantastic because, to be slightly pedantic, Lennon created the trust so he could have controlled opposition. And then, however long later, Stalin, the paranoid alcoholic on vodka, found out about it and said, no, they're enemies of the state, and wiped everyone out. And like the head of the trust is like, what are you doing? We're in perfect position. We control the opposition. We know where everything is. He said, no, kill them all. And it's like, okay, Stalin.
Remember the line Felix Dzerzhinsky said, you've successfully managed to destroy the most successful counterintelligence operation in history.
Yeah.
Remember that when he said that to Stalin?
Yeah.
Great. Or remember the greatest line ever was that beautiful shot where they're homing in on Sidney Riley, and he's got his hand open, and it's over the roof of one of those old Bugatti cars, and he's talking about how he was going to take over Russia, and he clenches his fist and goes, I had it in my hand, because that crazy lady tried to assassinate Lenin at a beer factory, and it destroyed the entire counter-revolution that Riley put together, and he ultimately gave his life because Riley was the one that went in and said, I want stuff blown up and I want Stalin assassinated, which is what triggered Stalin to say, round them up, kill them all. And the rumor was that Riley either died in a Siberian prison or possibly escaped. But if more people saw that, they get a real idea of the history of the 20th century and how oil was behind a lot of it and all that. So
yeah, like in the first,
you're looking at the left or the New World Order guys. And look, they've got like 6 months of control where they've completely taken over every aspect of government, from the DOJ to the Congress to the Senate to the presidency, whatever. So whatever move they're going to make, I mean, this summer is going to be crazy because whatever move they're going to make, and right now, and it's all timed, by the way, to the Pluto transits. It is all timed to the Pluto transits because Pluto went into 27 degrees Capricorn on February 22nd. And I told everybody this was going to be the beginning of the war. It was only me and Alex Jones were the only two guys that actually predicted the exact date that the whole Ukraine thing would come down. And so go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So, Sean, do you think...
I was just going to say, in the first episode of Ace of Spies, it's like during World War One or just after World War One, and they stole the British MI6 or whatever they are. The British intelligence stole the surveys for the oil fields of the Middle East, and that's why everything just got screwed, because the British wanted control over everything, and that's why they made borders where it's like, well, we'll just cut the Arabs in half with a line and everything else like that. So it is worth seeing if you can find it. Sidney Riley, Ace of Spies. It's 6 episodes. It's made in, I think, 1983, which is kind of good because it was allowed
way back in the 80s.
Yeah, and it was allowed to be made.
Way back.
And it is fascinating, just not from the trust, but everything of like, there's been a controlling factor for most of the 20th century. And once you see how it was all sort of unfold, you go, that's why we're stuffed. Go ahead, Bruce.
I think the biggest thing about it, too, just one last point on it, is that if you understand the power structure of what was going on, you had the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. And the way the Rockefellers who were not royalty, not part of the bloodlines, not anyway, but the way these fat, ugly kids got their place at the table was the fact that the French and the Rothschilds, along with the British and what have you, they were all betting on coal. If you look at all the steampunk stuff and all that, and how technology would have developed if everything was based on steam. And they bet on steam. Yeah. They thought that steam and coal were going to be the power sources of the 20th century. And it was the Rockefellers who bet on oil. And once they bet on oil, and they won with oil, but they had to do all kinds of crazy stuff to do it. For example, Prohibition was all triggered by the Rockefellers because they did not want farmers actually making moonshine, which is what they were using to power their Jeeps and cars and farm equipment and whatever. So they just banned it all, claiming, oh yes, it's a thing to stop men from drinking and beating up their wives and all that stuff, which is complete crap. So, but that's how they basically won the 20th century, by being the oil providers when the whole coal steam thing collapsed, primarily, once again, because they stopped that Australian guy from selling his, I forget what his name is in the series, but from selling his stuff to the French and the Rothschilds. And instead, Sidney Riley, remember, he dressed up like the priest and went on the Rothschilds' boat and got the Australian guy to not sell, and then sell to the British. But all right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna ask. You mentioned Hillary the Witch Queen Clinton and Barry the Caramel Catamite Soreto. Are you saying that you were actually on their radar, like they knew your name? Because yeah. I don't think they would have known Winston Shrout and the other sort of just sovereign citizen people. But you are a special case because of all the other disclosure you have done, right? I also used to talk to Tommy Hawksblood quite a bit, and he was convinced they did you because of Sands of Time.
Yep. Nope. That's absolutely right. There's so much declassified stuff in Sands of Time. Matter of fact, Cliff High just sent me a thing saying, "Yep, you were right. That's why they tossed you in jail." Because and just to prove this to you, I mean, again, I'd done pieces on Hillary Clinton. I was the first guy to get up on TV. I was on ABC News, yelling and screaming about when JFK Jr. died, basically saying Hillary Clinton killed him. She killed him. Why aren't people talking about the fact that they had lunch that day where they got in a fight where he said, "You're a carpetbagger, you're a rotten person, you're not good for New York. I'm going to run for my uncle's Senate seat in New York, and this town ain't big enough for both of us, and get the hell out of Dodge." When he came out of that meeting, he looked white as a ghost. I mean, it was, I still have the footage of it somewhere. And Hillary comes out with that, I've got canaries stuffed in my face look. And they said, "So what did you and John talk about?" And she said, "Well, I advised him not to enter public life," which is the same warning his mother had given him, saying that if he was to enter public life, my son will wind up like his father and like his uncle. And 12 hours later, he's dead. And I was up on ABC Nightlight saying, that's not a coincidence. If you look at the list of people that have gotten in the way of the Clintons that have all woken up dead or been Arkansas-sided, as they used to call it, because of all the people from Arkansas that supposedly committed suicide. And that was just the first thing. And that was back when I was working for Hard Copy. So I'd put her in the crosshairs quite a bit. And just to give you an idea, you know who the foreperson was on my jury? Her name was Katie Ingebrigtsen. And Katie Ingebrigtsen was the campaign manager for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and was the person who collected all the internet data on Democrats, Republicans, or whatever else that helped both of them win the election. She was on my jury and lied to us about who she was, because we said, "What do you do?" "Oh, I work for a green company, and we just help. We like trees." And I'm like, and we were not allowed void dire. We were not allowed to cross-examine any of the jurors for any reason. One guy, they said, "How long have you lived in LA County?" And he goes, "I've been here 45 minutes. And they're like, "What?" And it turns out you had two people that had flown in from Pakistan that day that somehow got on my jury. And these are the people that convicted me. So Katie Ingebrigtsen, look her up, because she pioneered this whole way of massing data to be able to target certain voters. And there she was on my jury. So if you want to see the connection between that and, of course,
another
jury selection. Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Just very quickly, because I can bring in a recent story. Apparently, one of the advisors to the Clintons has killed himself, and it came out yesterday or today.
What a shock!
Yeah, and Sean, you'll love this. This is how he committed suicide. He was found hanging from a tree with a shotgun blast.
See, that's Arkansas. That's Arkansas suicide. They actually can't coin the term here because of all the people that die around the Clintons. And
it's what, 56, 76 people or something? Go ahead, Bruce.
They identified 3 or 4 people on the Sussman jury who had donated to the Hillary Clinton Foundation. I mean, why were they not vetted in the grand jury selection? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just there's literally no more law. If you take a close look at it, it's just like one of those pastiches, like the front part of a saloon in a Western set in Hollywood. There is no law. And Canada's even worse. I hate to say it. I can't speak for Australia, Monty, but I mean, Canada under Trudeau now is getting really, really scary. And he's lost all support. Even newspapers that used to be favorable towards him. It's not like the United States where there seems to be this completely sycophantic media to everything the leftists and progressives do. No, in Canada, they're marauding Trudeau. They want him out of office. I've never seen, and it emboldens him. He seems to say at this point, F you. We are the only country in the world that still has COVID restrictions. My father's on his deathbed. He has COPD, and he had to go into the hospital because he couldn't breathe for 3 days. He turned 87 June 2nd, and when he came out of the hospital, he's now been diagnosed with tuberculosis. I would like to go back for the funeral and give his eulogy. I can't, but if I enter Canada with my Canadian passport, I can't get back out and come back to my wife and family in Costa Rica unless I get vaccinated. Sorry. But I could go to a rock concert with 40,000 people unmasked and unvaccinated. Like it doesn't even make any sense. So this is why I think and I don't think this is them slipping. I think this is them tacitly telling us whatever illusion you had that you live in a democracy, give it up. This is a tyranny, whether you like it or not. And that seems to be more and more the message, at least in the Five Eyes countries.
Have you seen the photo? I don't know if you've seen the photo of Trudeau sitting at a desk on a phone, and then in back of him is Alexander Soros, and they're at the Dominion voting machine company.
Yeah.
And there's Soros right behind him, the kid who's taken over from his evil little, Palpatine Emperor scumbag dad, who has created the chaos in the United States by funding these district attorneys that will not persecute crime, that create. I mean, everything seems to be creating the Weimar Republic. Everything is creating the massive crime wave and wheelbarrows full of money to buy a loaf of bread and all of this. And you just got to look at history to see where the Weimar Republic led. And of course, it led to the Nazis. It led to, and there's all these. I can't stand these people who are saying, "Oh, well, the white hats in the military are going to come in and save us." I'm like, really? Are you guys kidding me? So the military-industrial, entertainment, pharmaceutical complex that gave you Vietnam, that gave you Iraq, that gave you Afghanistan, that gave you, fraud after fraud after fraud, that's cost us trillions and trillions of dollars, and unknown treasure and lives. They're going to save us now. They're going to step in and. And this is what you're being fed. If you're a, quote, Trump supporter or what have you, you're being fed this. And now the people here, this is how ridiculous this gets, but they still think that Trump's president of the United States and that he's got the nuclear football and he's, all this other stuff and may or may not be. But the one way I've exploded their argument was to say, okay, well, if he's still president, he can't run for president again in 2024, can he? Because there is a constitutional amendment that says you can only be president twice. For 8 years. And that just stops them in their tracks because they're like, oh, no, there's a special thing and, oh, it's a deal. And, the White Hats have that all figured out. I'm like, shut up. You guys don't know
I found this, someone shared on Twitter. I like to twit, let's be fair.
Does it make you twatty? I'm not sure.
Yes, I read the Twitter on the shitter. Someone who's had to isolate because if you enter the country and you're not vaccinated, you can isolate for 14 days. That's the other problem with Bruce. He has to know, hopefully, if his dad this is going to sound wrong. When his dad passes away, hopefully the funeral is 14 days after, so Bruce can actually get to it because he would have to isolate for 14 days. Now, apparently. This person wasn't home or didn't answer the door, and so this is the letter that was, or piece of paper that was left to any persons under quarantine or isolation at this location. You missed a visit from a screening officer. A screening officer from the Public Health Agency of Canada came to your location to verify that you are in quarantine. You did not answer the door. What happens now? Your name will be referred to law enforcement for further follow-up. A law enforcement officer may visit your quarantine location. If you are not complying with all quarantine requirements, you may be subject to enforcement. Violating any instructions provided to you when you entered Canada or failing to provide accurate information is an offence under the Quarantine Act and could lead to a ticket up to $5,000, admission into a federal quarantine facility, camp, 6 months in prison, and or fines up to $750,000. If you choose to break your mandatory quarantine, resulting in the death of or bodily harm to another person, you could face a fine up to $1 million or imprisonment up to 3 years or both.
Yeah.
And just one more little box. Reminder, after entering Canada, you must quarantine or isolate for at least 14 days. You must remain in a place of quarantine. You cannot go to the grocery store or any other public place. You cannot visit other people and have visitors in your place of quarantine. You must complete and submit your self-administered COVID-19 molecule tests. And so, there's some junk mail.
Sean, I'd love to hear your take on the vaccine. What do you think we'll be looking at medically over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, the comment on what Monty just said, it's like my grandmother, who was from Ireland, used to say, the reason God created the sun is because you can't trust the fucking English in the dark. And, and then she said, the Irish knew America was heaven because you got off the boat, they gave you a gun, and they told you to shoot the fucking English. Unfortunately, because neither of you guys in Canada or Australia ever stood up on your hind legs against the redcoats and against these people, you're all still subjects, and therefore you're not citizens. You don't have any rights. You don't have a constitution. You don't have anything that even pretends to protect you from these people. So they can do anything they want. And the minute they took all your guns away, again, we were talking about how a dog with no teeth gets kicked all day. But at some point, you guys are going to have to rise up against these people and do something. And the closest you came up in Canada was, finally the truckers just, who were being thrown in prison for parking. And and as far as the other
honking. And
the leaders are the leaders are still incarcerated. Tamara Lynch and Pat Smith, they're still in jail in Ottawa Detention Center. That's my hometown, by the way. I literally grew up about 2 kilometers from that detention center, and they've been there 100 days now, and there's no charges. Like, they don't even know what they're going to charge them with. They're not even having preliminary hearings.
And the Canadian twist is they froze bank accounts. That was the tiptoe step further than, say, January 6th or whatever here in Australia. The Trudeau decided, we'll freeze the bank accounts. It's like, okay, that's the level of Canada at the moment.
It's statutory warfare now, right? They're doing the same thing to Putin and the Russian oligarchs, and it's completely illegal. I mean, the U.S. has seized $300 billion worth of Putin's gold. Now, just to put that into context, and Sean probably knows this, but all through World War II, the Bank of England and the U.S. Federal Reserve continued to execute the transactions of the Third Reich.
Yeah, they were doing fine. They were all there. As a matter of fact, we had to pass the Trading with the Enemies Act to stop Prescott Bush and Andrew Carnegie and the Carnegie and all this other stuff from basically trading with the Germans. And this was by the way, the Trading with the Enemy Act was passed in 1943. So, we've been at war with these guys for a while before somebody said, well, maybe we shouldn't be selling them weapons and maybe we shouldn't do this. And it's okay. So the vaccine, I don't even know what to tell you. I mean, it's like, this is the New World Order wet dream where people lined up for something that is in essence medical rape. It's medical rape. You want to rape my kid? Sure, here you go. Jam instead of a penis, you can jam a metal spike into him and inject him with a bunch of untested chemicals. And how hilarious is it? Is it just me that notices that now you've got the abortion thing going on and all these completely crazed, rainbow-haired women with piercings in their body are screaming, my body, my rights, my body, and the whole deal. And yet they were perfectly fine with yelling and screaming and shaming people to allow them to inject, lethal chemicals into your body. But now with abortion, it's, it's my body, my choice, my body, my choice. Why weren't people using that during the whole vaccine thing? And it's the ultimate control, isn't it? If they can violate your body, if they can inject you with whatever else. And as far as what I see it as, is it was not only a test of whether or not the populace would comply and how willing they would comply, because again, you can't stop people that just say no. And not enough people stood up and said no. Could have fought these people right, left, and center. You could have I think every person in New York that was arrested for, or at least detained for being in a public space without, a vaccination or vaccination card or whatever, they were just let go. The judge is just like, well, we've messed with you enough. Get out of here. They weren't fined. They were just because you can't really enforce it legally. But isn't it? All I do is I notice that anything that Bill Gates gets involved in, who's got to be Gates and Soros, and of course Fauci and all this. I mean, this is the triumvirate of evil. There is no difference between them and Hitler's Nazis of Hitler and Goering and whatever else probably worked. And
well, I think Soros literally is a Nazi from infancy onward.
Yeah, his whole thing was the way he made his money was his family made his money by ratting out other Jews in Hungary. And what they would do is they would rat out this person as a Jew. The Nazis would come and they would take the people away to a concentration camp. And then he and his family would then loot the house and sell all the furniture and all the jewels and everything else. That's how he made his fortune. And,
and he's proud of it too.
And not only is he proud of it, but he is the one that has engineered the various color revolutions in the Belarius and all these other places. And the day it was happening, when Hillary lost the election, and she was crying, she was moaning, whatever else, you notice everybody was wearing purple. You had Bill Clinton wearing a purple tie. She was wearing this dress that had purple lapels on it with a purple skirt. Everybody was wearing purple. What's his name? Schumer was wearing purple as well. Everybody was wearing purple. I was like, this is it. This is the next color revolution. This is what they're going to do. And how they're going to do this is that Soros is going to fund these district attorneys. Man, I call this out because all I got to do is look at history to see how do you wreck a country. I mean, my political science degree was I would stand up in front of my class at USC, even though you would think that USC was fairly conservative, and I would challenge them. And I would say, okay, with all the protections in line, with all the separations of government, with all the 50 state governments, with the federal government, the state governments, the local governments, county governments, how do you take over the United States? If we all had $1 trillion, we're all meeting in here, and we want to take over, and I made it a class project, and I got an A on the class project, because every single one of these people said you got to control the press, you got to centralize power, you've got to do whatever. And I'm surprised that people are not more outraged at the fact that in less than 18 months, Joe Biden, with the power of the head of federal government, has completely managed to entirely undermine everything that this country was doing right, and destroy as much of our economy in the there's a new paper towel ad out there that's got Biden on the paper towel, and the motto is the quicker fucker upper, because he's instead of Bronny. But I think the vaccine was, well, first off, it had nothing to do with medicine. It had everything to do about population control. The second aspect is that what is it inside the in the vaccine itself? And again, now we're starting to see everything that we predicted, that within 9 to 12 months of people being vaccinated, that all these problems are going to show up. Again, the monkeypox is a side effect because it's chimpanzee adrenochrome that was actually it was listed in the freaking in the ingredients, as I'm sure you know.
The one thing I pointed out is how come now heart disease is rampant in the Western civilization because we live like crap. However, why are healthy professional athletes having all these health problems?
Well, guess why? They had to go from country to country. They had to be vaccinated over and over again.
Yeah. Well, I've had arguments with people, and so I've formulated it quite well. Why are these professional athletes who are fit, they look after their health, they're having heart attack and heart problems? Now, the first step is, well, what's changed? Well, the vaccine. It's not the vaccine. All right, cool. We'll take vaccine off the table. Why is this still happening? Okay, let's go back to the vaccine then.
Yeah. My wife's mother is obviously Mormon. And she did all the stuff and did all the boosters and all. And unfortunately, she's 80 plus years old, and she's in the hospital now with clots all through her body. I'm like, well, you guys have this slavish devotion to church and state, and you do whatever they say, and look what happens. Mm-hmm. So, and the worst part about it is that if you look at all the babies that were born during the pandemic, and you look at all the mothers that were vaccinated, I think out of 20 babies that did a test case of, 18 of them were just completely screwed up. I mean, there's only 2 that came out unscathed. And I think the trick is that I think half the vaccines they gave out were possibly placebos for them to say, oh, see, the vaccine's fine, nobody's. And my wife had to get vaccinated for her job, and she took the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And if you'll notice, Johnson & Johnson was the only vaccine that was not an RNA DNA scrambler. It was basically just a flu shot. But the only place you could get it here in Los Angeles were in the black neighborhoods. You can only get in Compton, Watts, Inglewood, up to no good. USC, you could go over there and get it because we're all in these primarily black neighborhoods. And they were unaffected by the vaccine. I don't know. They were unaffected by it. But again, everywhere else. And then what you saw Pfizer smearing the snot out of Johnson & Johnson, claiming that Johnson & Johnson's vaccine were somehow polluted or damaged or whatever. So they would pull the Johnson & Johnson vaccine so Pfizer could take over everything to give everybody the poison vaccine, because Johnson & Johnson was the only one that didn't have all the bad stuff in it. So
yeah, I'd just like to quickly point out we're not sponsored by Pfizer like everything else. Right. Yeah. Have you seen that montage clip of like all the news agents and news reports and I think the Grammys and all that type of brought to you by Pfizer? Well, we're not.
So,
look
Sean,
at
a moment.
Here's a theory about the Will Smith incident. The Will Smith incident is that his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, has alopecia. Well, guess who's now sponsoring the Oscars? Pfizer. And what are they working on? They're working on an alopecia cure. Who's going to be the spokesperson for that? Jada Pinkett Smith. Therefore, when Chris Rock gets up and tells a G.I. Jane joke about G.I. Jane and Will Smith, I think the whole thing was probably planned by Pfizer, because now, not only would nobody have even known the Academy Awards were out there if that incident hadn't happened, but I guarantee you, I bet you dollars to donuts now, that Jada Pinkett Smith will become the spokesperson for the new alopecia vaccine or whatever they're going to do with it, because now Pfizer's sponsoring the Academy Awards, so you might just want to look into it and say, well, gee, it's all about the money after all, isn't it, Will?
Most of the world's alopecia is actually caused by vaccine. The hair loss and everything. And alopecia doesn't always work like, it's not a uniform sort of hair loss. It's like patches of hair loss. Most people just, shave completely. So it's a vaccine that caused the problem that's going to fix the problem. It's a bit of a circular thing going on over there.
I'm also, I found out today via Twitter, I should really look at other websites, that Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock.
Spent a lot of time on the toilet, read Twitter.
Yeah. I need some fiber in my diet, let's be fair. So just in and out and move on. Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock are doing a stand-up comedy tour, and I'm thinking the security on that must be immense.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the guy that jumped up on stage and attacked Dave Chappelle, he wasn't even charged with anything. He came up there with a fake gun, and the fake gun had a knife attached to it, and he tackles Chappelle, and he wasn't even charged. He was charged with a trespass or something stupid.
Well, what they couldn't find a witness at the Hollywood Bowl?
Exactly. No, that guy got off scot-free. It's
I don't mean to get all technical, but usually when a blade is attached to an arm, it's called a bayonet.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. It looked like it was that's exactly what it was. It was on a clip thing that folded up underneath the gun, and they said the gun was fake. Didn't look fake to me. But no, the guy got off. This is why it's become a city of crime here. We don't need police in Los Angeles. We need Batman, because it's that bad. Whole place.
Justice League.
Yeah.
What's the deal with purple, the color purple with these people? Now, my immediate intuition is that it's the mixing of the two states of blood, red and blue.
Right,
but
yeah.
Is it
red? It's red and blue, right? Yeah, but it's also, why is it the color of royalty? Why is it the color of the, when you talk about blue bloods as an example, it's just had, for some reason, purple has, because of the combination is probably, I guess, if you slit somebody's throat, the blood comes out kind of purplish. But the occult significance of it just goes back forever into various, cults and covens, and because it's the twilight color. It's between light and darkness. It's what the sky turns between, as the sun is setting. So, but they had an orange revolution in Belarus. They had all these color revolutions that Soros has designed by purposely going in with his billions and destabilizing law enforcement. You defund police, you fund riots, you fund Black Lives Matter, which is funny because Black Lives might matter, but they sure don't matter. They don't matter to other black people, because you see, the black crime is, the highest you can get. And the people that need the police are the poor people that live in the ghettos. They're being victimized. You talk to any black person, you go down to Watts, you go down to Compton, you say, less police? They go, hell no, man. Somebody's got to deal with these motherfuckers on the street, man. Shit, man. We need more cops.
Yeah, just look at Chicago. Look, it's a gun-free zone. No, it's not. Look at all the murders. I can see the Bruce's point where there is no law. Weirdly enough, it's not 100%. There are still people that go into law and having to deal with law, and there's small victories, but it's got nothing to do with the global narrative or whatever they're doing. It's like, this person ran over my foot. Oh, we'll give you $1,000. You know what I mean? There's still wins in the legal system, but it has nothing to do with politicians and the system and everything else like that. So they can go, look, we're doing something. And it's like, yeah, but what about? I mean, if the truth, justice, and American way, to quote Superman, The Clintons would have been in jail, but what, 85, 87?
Yeah. Well, and what's the one campaign promise that Trump broke? Everybody talks about, promises made, promises kept. And why is it that Trump was finally voted out of office? Because he didn't keep that one promise. I don't know if you saw the campaign here, but what did the crowds, the Trump crowds, what were they chanting?
Lock her up.
Lock her up. And what did he not do?
No.
Because the problem is when you lock up the queen witch, when you lock up the the main sorceress, who was I mean, you guys don't even know the half of it, but I mean, Hillary Clinton.
We're here.
But she was She was running sex parties in Washington D.C. She had all these Pentagon generals that would come if their wives didn't want to come and get fucked by a bunch of other dudes. She would set them up with prostitutes who would go to the sex parties. Every single one of these sex parties was filmed, by the way, surreptitiously. So she had a body of evidence to this. And I think Trump realized that if he took on the head witch, that she has just as much control over Republicans as she did Democrats. She had hit squads of people. It was an actual hit squad that Hillary sent up that killed Seth Green, who was the guy that actually did the dump to WikiLeaks, because he was mad about the fact that the Democratic Party was screwing over his guy. Who's the old man?
Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders. They were screwing over Bernie Sanders. Twice Bernie Sanders got passed over. He got paid a cash bribe to just shut up. And they went right to Hillary, thinking that Hillary was somebody who could actually win the election. And it was Seth Green. Oh, what am I talking about, Seth Green?
He was taken out because he gave WikiLeaks the information. And the weird thing is, you look at we're coming up to the break, like the whole Julian Assange. He's an Australian citizen that was given information, but they want to charge him with treason.
Well, originally it was rape, you'll remember, and then the girl said, no, it's not rape. He didn't do anything to me. And then they've just, and again, let me point out, this is, Donald Trump's character. Donald Trump had 10,000 requests for pardons sitting on his desk. One of them was mine, by the way. He had 50,000 requests for commutation of sentence. Matter of fact, my first conversation with Juan O'Savin or Wayne Williott, it's right out of the blue, he calls me on the phone. And I'm like, hey, man, what's up? And he's like, look, don't out me, man. Don't out me. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I got this whole thing, Juan O'Savin, don't tell everybody who I am. I'm like, I don't care what you call yourself. Go ahead. If you've got a stage name, that's fine. And I said, but look, you're all buddies with Trump, right? Oh, yeah, we're best buddies, playing golf at Mar-a-Lago all the time. Well, I got a pardon sitting on his desk. Have him sign it. Oh, no, that's for further down the line, man. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, he's going to be president again on January 20th, and so we'll get everything handled after that. And then even after that, I said, well, can I borrow some money? I'm sleeping on couches, and I've got cancer, and I'm dying. And he's like, oh, yeah, not right now. That'll come, when we all get money and all this other stuff. I'm like, you're just full of shit, man. You're full of shit. And when Trump walked away, Mitch McConnell threatened Trump and said, if you sign pardons specifically for Assange and Edward Snowden and all these other people sitting on your desk, I will get my 19 butt boys in the Senate to vote to impeach you, and you'll never be able to run for president again. How do you like them apples? And Trump walked away. Left all those pardons on his desk.
Another thing that Trump didn't do anything on, I don't know if he was going to, but he floated with it, which is slightly ironic because he was removed from Twitter, was internet or censorship, especially on the internet. I've dabbled with censorship on the internet. Hello, YouTube, you suck. If he wants to run again, he should start doing that because everyone's been quiet. Like, it's got to the point where I've seen comedians talking about it. People are self-censoring because they don't want the backlash and to be cancelled.
Well, and let me point out that Trump was setting up his Truth Social network, and when it finally went live, first off, he didn't put a dime of his own money into it. He was like, he wanted other people to pay for it. And then he was going to brand it to make money. Where are all these billions of dollars he's supposed to have? And he doesn't do it. So they set up Truth Social. 100 million people sign up for it. He's only got space for 40 million. So he can't even set it up with enough money to give it enough bandwidth to make it viable. Now Musk talked about looking at Twitter. And now that they're doing the particulars on it, they realize that probably 70% of Twitter is fake. It's fake. You're hiring people in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or somewhere to sit there on computers and click your stuff. And you can buy 35,000 followers for $100. All right, thanks guys for having me. I really appreciate you. I I got to go to bed.
That was Sean David Morton, ladies and gentlemen. He'll be back soon. We'll be back after these. I don't know which channel we're on, so we'll just keep going. This is Planet Collingwood, Revolution Radio. You're awesome. Stick around. And we're back here. It's just Planet Collingwood. The strange universe has winked out of existence. Well, Sean went to bed, let's be fair. Big thank you to Sean David Morton for popping on. He wanted me to help out with him. He wanted me to do the 2 hours of Strange Universe. However, I have Planet Collingwood, so the man is a ball of creativity energy and said, well, why can't we do both? And that's what you just heard. The crossover you didn't think you needed to have, but we did have it. So history was made there, ladies and gentlemen.
It was like a Marvel DC crossover, Monty, like Superman versus the Hulk.
Yeah, written by a good writer. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We've still got another hour of Planet Collingwood. For those on the video platforms, which are YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute, you can find the first hour of Strange Universe at the archives at freedomslips.com, where we talk and some of the references we referred back to, it makes sense. Now, we've actually replaced our guest. Sean has moved off. He's going to hospital tomorrow, so get well there, sir. And we have an old stalwart, a friend of the family, the prodigal son. Cortek has returned, and I have no idea where he is because he's talking crazy. He's like, it's 8 a.m. here. I'm like, where the hell are you?
I'm in the UK.
Oh, well, wow. I knew you were going for a walk, but really,
No,
I'm going for a walkabout. Like, So.
Yeah, as soon as they opened the gate, we hadn't seen relatives for about 3.5 years before they shut the gate. So it's been ages, and we had to come visit. So it's early morning. I've swapped a beer for a coffee, and I'm not sure. I'm sure I've missed a lot over the last 2 weeks, but I've written down some things that I thought was quite interesting.
No, that's all right. You can always listen back on the YouTube, Odyssey, and so on and so forth. So, they are recorded. YouTube hasn't canned them yet. So, if you enjoyed the last hour or two, depending what channel you're on, we are still on Hawk's Nest because I can't be buggered changing anything. So, for the next hour on Hawk's Nest and Studio A, and finally, we shall take down Studio B, and the prophecy shall be fulfilled for Planet Collingwood. Mass domination till about 6 p.m. my time, and then I'm going to go eat dinner and watch some TV. Anyway, if you enjoyed the last hour, let me think. I have to do some housekeeping. If you enjoyed the last hour, please go to freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio and click on that Patreon button and give what you can. We don't accept children, which upset Sean because he had a really good adrenochrome business on the side there. Don't sell your house. You need that. I've paid rent this week. At least I have somewhere to starve in. So that's good. And then obviously while you're on the website, go into the merch or the Zazzle store, and there's cups and mouse pads and T-shirts and caps and onesies for the little ones. Then pop into the chat room and hang out with like-minded, like-hearted, and just like people. And now we return to the MacDonald Hour, where his guest, Cortek, is about to be asked a question.
I resent that.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, Cortek, you sound a little under the weather. Do you have the COVID?
Hey, I've got the sniffles. I picked up something on the way over, but
well, go get the vaccine. Go get the vaccine, man. Because you know
no,
what?
Thanks.
The AIDS cures the COVID.
No, thanks. I've been having coughs and colds since I was a child. I don't need pharmaceuticals to help me with that.
Okay.
What I thought was super interesting was, did you guys see any stories about a U.S. warship swarmed by drones? Did you see that?
No.
Okay, so there's an article off the Drive that is. Let me see. Defense officials confirmed in a recent hearing that it was drones that swarmed Navy ships off California, and it even happened again off another coast. But there's these crazy pictures. Let me see. I know this is a audio format, but I thought that was super interesting and something that I've kind of never seen before. So have a look and see what you think of the pictures. But then, I didn't know where to file that. But then I saw something else that I thought was interesting, which was China's first drone carrier capable of operating its own, autonomous vehicles was a story that I saw, and they seem to kind of go together. I don't know if anyone's put those together, but they seem to be a lock and a key to me. I don't know what you think. See what you think. The AI drone carrier story was from South China News site, and I'm not sure where the drive is, but there's the drive is where the Navy ship swarmed by drone story is from. But if you put that in, you can find it. But there are thousands and thousands of drones in these pictures where you can see that the aircraft deck kind of thing there. So I'm not sure what the story is, but they seem to go together. I'm not sure. I just wanted to see what you guys thought.
I have no thoughts on that. Monty?
Sorry, everyone's messaging me at the same time, so I wouldn't surprising me because, I don't know if you saw Cortek that apparently the Australian military and the Chinese military are flicking note boogers at each other or something. So it's like, they're thumbing their nose. They take that. No, you take that. Why they sound Italian, but anyway. So is it just empty saber rattling to be a distraction because nothing else is working?
Nothing seemed to happen. They just kind of hovered around.
It's not just Australia, Monty. They buzzed a couple Canadian fighter jets too. Buzzing is like it's a Top Gun thing where you know what I mean. Yeah, okay.
When he got in trouble for buzzing the flight deck or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they're just getting extremely belligerent, right? The Chinese, and who can blame them? Because we, as the Western Alliance, have been belligerent for decades. Maybe we're just getting a little bit of our own medicine. You know what? You want to know what my solution is to all this stuff and why I supported Trump, and I still do. I don't think his second term would do too much, and I recognize all the failings. I recognize $6 trillion disappeared with the COVID bailout and all that nonsense. But look, man, the guy had me when he said, I'm not signing the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the Paris Accord. That's it. I don't need to know any more than that. I don't, oh, he's a racist. Yeah, he didn't sign TPP or the Paris Accord. What do you want me to do? Right? Do you like this thing we call a nation state, or are you ready to go into this big global reset where you get your bowl of cockroach protein twice a day, and you'll never be happier because they're gonna. And the only reason they can, I mean, that is so Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. I mean, how could they make you happy? They're going to drug you up, man. They're going to create some kind of mild MDMA, put it in the water, and keep everybody's pretty much stoned already, right? I think if you watch too much digital TV, it's, I seem to be immune to it. Monty seems to be immune to it, but a lot of people are not. And one of the things I wanted to get into with Sean, but we didn't have time, because I was trying to be polite, and not talk too much. Monty Dean.
Wow.
Well, what I find interesting, Sean, I'll come onto the round table because I need to rest my voice. That went well.
So. Well, we inspired him.
Yeah. Oh, well, he's just got the energy for it as well. So
anybody who says this.
You noticed there, Cortek, he mentioned Monty and him when he was talking about the Mefner state, but he didn't mention us.
Yeah, so we're drugged up.
Yeah. We're drugged.
Yeah, but to be fair, Raz, you only spoke twice in the last hour.
No, still.
No, you're listening though. I mean, it was a good conversation. So I love it when there's a panel and I don't have to do much. It's when I fill in for Sean and it's just me and I have to monologue for 2 hours. There's there's a thing in the back of my head going, "You suck, you suck, you suck."
The conversation with Sean was. One, very Canadian, with a lot of Canadian name I know nothing about. Second, both of them seems to be having fun, and Bruce had a genuine sort of urge to talk to the guy and inquire. So, out of courtesy for both of them, I'm like, I'm not going to chime in unless I really had to.
I said that. You don't have to explain yourself. It's like, yes.
No.
I'm one of those weird guys that actually likes to talk to writers I've read.
Mm-hmm. Whoa, hang on, wait.
That's super weird.
You're a reader? Anyway.
We got ourselves a reader.
Anybody Do you know during the Cultural Revolution in China, you could be killed just for wearing glasses? That guy looks smart. He must be reading. Monk's robes, anything that suggested you did anything more than farm the dirt manually, you got killed.
Yeah, I mean, they're calling it the Cultural Revolution.
Welcome back, Cortek. We've missed you.
I missed you guys as well.
Yeah, the Cultural Revolution's like, well, I think it wasn't really a revolution for culture. It was a revolution against culture.
Yeah.
Because thousands of years of emperors. Now, obviously, there was corruption and it needed to change, and like the movie The Last Emperor kind of it's a good story, and it shows. Don't know if it's 100% true, but it shows how the last emperor is like, oh, that went well. But the whole thing of just like the color and the history. It's so like because Bruce, you've lived in Taiwan and you've met Chinese people. It's so weird where the political class is like everyone wear grey. Yeah, this is called the Clinton. Everyone wear the same pantsuit, and then you have but if you look at our history. The colors, children, they talk to me. It's so completely the opposite. And real Chinese people remember their history because when I had cable television in my bedroom 20 years ago on the Discovery Channel, because not all shows went for an hour, they didn't really have ad breaks, but they had like 2-minute or 5-minute little inserts. And it was like ancient Chinese inventions. And the Chinese basically invented everything 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, there was a lot.
Gunpowder. Yeah, that's the first item. There's another 4,653 items to go through.
Yeah, I love those Discovery shows the first time they were on.
Yeah, but this was just like, sorry, Bruce, give me a moment. These were just like mini clips. They will pick one thing and go like, and say, and this. If it was a whole documentary, it would have been more fascinating. Actually, it would have broken people's brains because of the amount of stuff. I mean, you can freak people out today by going, did you know 2,000 years ago, Romans had heated floors? And then, what? And their mind just is blown. And all it is you put a fire next to a bit of pipe, and the floor underneath is empty.
That is so amazing. There's heated kind of tiles over here because we never bother in Australia, and it is so comforting on the foot. It's ridiculous. You never bother in Australia, but it is.
Well, no. Well, see, even if it's for like a month and a half in Melbourne where it is cold, but the UK, it's special.
Yeah.
I'll say it that way.
Is it true that all the 4 months of rain in Australia have put lettuce up to $5 a cabbage? I heard KFC has started to put cabbage in there and everyone's complaining.
Yeah, I saw an article today actually saying that because there was was it a cyclone, typhoon, hurricane, big stormy, it hit the crops. And then I think 2 weeks later there was a massive rain thing going on. And according to the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, they're selling boxes at $80 a box, a head of lettuce is $10 Australian.
Whoa!
Is it just
and
lettuce
if this
or
keeps
everything?
up,
sorry, Bruce.
If this keeps up, we won't even be buying food this time next year. We'll be going to auctions at Sotheby's to buy it.
It seems like the case.
Yeah, because it's just the element of weather that is here. Now, if you like Top Gear, the English car show with the original hosts, Jeremy Clarkson, who's the cranky funny one. Is that the best way of describing?
The one that hit the producer.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the cranky funny one. Yeah, he decided to, because he owns a farm in Oxfordshire, just outside of Oxford. Now I'm speaking as an Australian. Just outside of Oxford could be a 3-hour drive. It's not like you can see it from here. Anyway, in 2019, 2020, he decided to actually become a farmer, and there's a TV show called Clarkson's Farm, 8 episodes. It's on Amazon Prime. And it follows him for 12 months. And it is fascinating to see, like, if you remember that far back of 3 years ago, the UK, it rained for 8 weeks straight. And so that hit the farmers so much more. And then 6 months later, there was a drought. as well. So apart from, if you like the style of Top Gear, the way that the show's made, it's very similar. It's obviously the same production crew. It shows the trials and tribulations of a farmer and what they go through. And I may make a T-shirt, hug a farmer, because they're going to be very, very wanted very soon.
They walk a fine line. Most of the time, there's not enough rain. Now there's too much rain.
Well,
I'll give a spoiler. Go ahead, Bruce.
They'll find a way to regulate family farm produce. It won't pass certification under the new FDA regulations. They're gonna screw over everything. You'll be allowed. The only thing, here's my theory, and I know this is kind of self-aggrandizing because it's exactly what I'm doing, but you got to do it all yourself. You got to grow food for yourself. Maybe you'll be able to do cooperatives and stuff, but I don't even know about that. There was a German guy north of Toronto called Schmidt, and he ran a milk cooperative and sold raw milk. And the government came in and said, hey, you can't do that. Milk's got to be pasteurized. He said, what are you talking about? People have been drinking unpasteurized milk for thousands of years. Yeah. And they said, well, that's the regulation. You can't do it anymore. And he came back with, well, I'm technically not selling it. I opened up a cooperative, and they're all basically partners in my business, and we're just sharing the equity of my farm. They came and they just did him dirty, man. They came in, they stole all his equipment, $250,000 worth of automated milking machines. That just totally raped the guy for selling unpasteurized milk. And those of you who are health inclined know full well the value of unpasteurized milk, right? It has all kinds of stuff we need.
Yeah, the trick is to drink it quickly. Like, its use by date is much less than what you get in the bottles.
Absolutely. And I've said this on air before, but I'll repeat it. Milk is not white. Okay? And so many things have shocked me here. Like, I
was thinking about that the other day, and I was laughing, but I'm going to laugh again in mute. Please go.
Yeah. So when I started eating eggs over here that were from my own chickens, the first thing I noticed are the yolks are tangerine orange, not that pale dying sun yellow that you get at the grocery stores in Canada, right? And of course, you guys know why that is, right?
Not really.
It's because the natural cycle for a chicken is one egg every 24 hours. But when you screw with their circadian rhythm and put them under fluorescent lights, they produce two eggs, but
it dilutes
half the nutrition. Right. Wow. So it's not even food. And it's the same thing with milk. Milk is not white. It's kind of a very light yellow color, like a pastel.
Yeah. It's, I mean, how far back do you want to go? But at least in the 80s, where I would say that's we lost the plastic war. Everything went plastic in the 80s. I know, Bruce, you're about a week and a half older than me, where everything was glass and paper, and we did recycle. Like Cortek, when you were in Australia, did you have you get soft drinks, which is soda? We call them soft drinks. Was it Lee's, or what were they called? Like, you would get a crate.
Yeah,
a crate.
What you're talking about.
Yeah, you get a crate of soft drink, and you drink them, and then you put them out either on the front lawn or near your front gate of your property, and then a guy would come around and actually collect that stuff, where the milkman and everything else like that. And ever since then, everything's gone plastic. I mean, someone has found a Yoplait, it's not French for yogurt. We were lied to through advertising. Actually, Raz, what is the word yogurt in French?
We don't have any. It's yogurt.
Oh, it's just yogurt. Okay,
yogurt,
Yoplait even lied double the time. Then, Yoplait is French for yogurt. It's like, you lying bastards. No, it's not.
Funny story. We call it Yoplait as well.
Yeah. Well, it's like photocopy or a Xerox, Breville. It's interesting when you say, Google some information. It doesn't mean go to Google. It just means it's a quicker way than saying search engine. But in 1975, they had 76, the Helsinki Olympics, and obviously Yoplait did a promotion for it. They actually found a tub with the Olympic symbol on that from the Helsinki Olympics, I think last year or the year before. And so, I mean, the plastic that we have has got a half-life of 5,000 years.
We've definitely got a microplastic problem in terms of
yeah.
Everything tastes so much better in glass. We're definitely not
that plastic in Coke bottles and soft drinks as well is partially the reason for the chemical imbalance we have in kids, men, women these days.
Yeah.
Because the plastic is actually bisphenol A, which is BPA, and BPA has a super estrogenic effect. So when you put xenoestrogen, which is foreign estrogen, into people's body, and pregnant women and all that, that's where you get all those soy boys, and all the chemical problem we have in this day and age. If you look at, say, the average metropolitan Western women, so big city women, they have like 150 to 200% estrogen. So it's one of the reasons why they're ultra bitchy. And they used to be actually much more normal back in the day, much more, how can I say, less bitchy simply. Because they weren't exactly on they weren't hyperestrogenic. And in men, it shaved half our sperm, which is another problem coming.
Yeah, I actually watched Friday Night Tights. It was their 200th episode, and Alex Jones was actually on it. That too. So I only watched Alex. I can't be bothered with everything else. But one thing he did point out, he said that Hillary will be running on 2024. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be wonderful because no one likes her.
Hillary won't get in.
Yeah, but he mentioned as well where like the sperm count has dropped down 96% or something weird like that, and everyone's being they're attacking toxic masculinity, and it's like, well, masculinity isn't toxic. The lack of masculinity is the problem. Because there's no father figure.
Anyone who says masculinity is toxic, you should ask them the question, what is masculinity? Don't worry, no one can answer that.
What's a woman?
See?
Didn't it come out that Hillary lied about in the trial of her campaign lawyer Michael Sussman?
Well, we generally introduce her as Hillary the Witch Queen Clinton. So I mean, stay on track here, Cortek.
All right, I missed a couple of weeks. Tell me if I've just running over the same old ground.
The Witch Queen, and Barack Obama is Barry the Caramel Catamite Soretto.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was only from last hour. So
it was only from last hour. Yeah.
But due to time differences, Cortek's like, I'm here. I'll bring you after the break. Ah, crap.
I've done it again.
Yeah. But it was good. We had Sean David Morton on. So.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time for him.
Monty and Raz, here's a quick question because you guys are both familiar with Andrew's work. Who does the negative soul contracts? Is it the same entity? Like, I once heard, I think it was Dolores Cannon say the tougher incarnation was to be the Nazi guard at the camp than it was to be the victim. And it was all, prearranged before the incarnation of that generation. So, I wonder, like, where do these super dark figures come from? Trudeau's one, by the way. He's a super dark figure. There are credible sources.
Define super dark figure. Who are you talking
about? Do you know who Robert Picton, the pig farmer, was in BC?
No.
British Columbia. He's the most prolific serial killer in North American history. He beat every record any American serial killer had. They don't even know how many people he killed. But he lived about 2 hours north of Toronto on a pig farm, and he used to go and he used to get prostitutes, and he would, whatever he did, and he would kill them and grind them up and sell the meat. And he had a license to have big parties. Like you have to get a license from the government to serve alcohol and everything. And apparently it was unbelievable who would show up for these parties. They were policed by the Hells Angels. And I've heard from credible podcasters 2 or 3 times now in the last 10 years that Justin Trudeau attended a few of those rape, murder, and cannibalism parties. And it all fits, too, because he was in British Columbia. He was just north of Vancouver teaching at a private boys' school. This is what I mean by a super dark incarnation.
All right. Let me try to explain this. When it comes to Hitler was a shard of a massive multidimensional dark entity. An entity so massive, so powerful, it will take millions of incarnate to actually house all his soul shards. And that soldier known as Adolf Hitler contracted 22 million people for the war. So all the 22 million people on the Reich side who sort of voted for him, who participated in the war and everything, everyone, it was already contracted. That side was contracted. Now, second, it's contracted pre-birth, pre-conception. It's contracted in the astral realm. Now, when it comes to conception and post-conception until birth, so the 9 months, this is the part where you go through the womb blueprint, infinite blueprint contract, where you look at your next 20 years and you calculate, okay, at the age of 6, I'm going to do this. At the age of 10, I'm going to do that. At the age of 20, I'm going to meet this girl and I'm going to have a relationship. At the age of 30, I'm going to get married. So that part of the contract, which is the womb part of the contract, this is the part where the karma hits. So what happens is, as for the prison guard, for instance, he was already contracted to assume that role, but in the womb he contracted specific individuals he would guard over. Now your question was, it was harder to be a prison guard rather than the prisoner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that again depends on karma. As for the big souls, the Justin Trudeau, the Hitler, and everything, those are the dark guys. They're the big guys. They're the bad guys. Now, of all the bad guys, I think of 12 of the bad guys, I think 15 of the bad guys, 12 has been kicked. 3 is left. And those 3 bad guys...
Oh, well, hold on a sec. You're talking about the celestial beings from the Galactic Historian, right? You're talking about the 15?
Yeah, Hitler was one of the shots of the 15.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. But I remember Andrew saying it takes about 25 or 30,000 bodies to incarnate one of them. You said you just said millions. Do you know something?
Million. Andrew didn't exactly picture the whole story there. It takes million to thousand. It depends.
Wow.
It depends.
That's unbelievable.
Because the average Krishna type being will take 80,000 or so.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah. You see, you know how people say I'm the reincarnation of Christ? Well, there's not going to be one of them. There's going to be like 80,000 of them. All of them saying I'm the reincarnation of Christ. You get what I'm saying? It's not going to be one guy. It's going to be a lot of guy, because the Christ guy never really comes in here. He sends a portion of himself here. So if he wants to come here as a whole, he can be in many, many bodies at the same time. Now, these dark individuals doing dark things, that's entirely up to them. Because you have to understand one thing about these guys. This story starts long ago. Last time we had a conversation and I told you about this. This story starts with free will. And these guys do not like the concept of law of one and love and everything. It's not that they hate love. They're okay with it. They just see free will from a perspective where I get to incarnate and do whatever the hell I want. What are you going to do? You're going to stop me? You can't stop me. I own the place. That's how these guys see that. Free will is very important. Once we're done here, you will see free will be on the menu for all the philosophers. Because free will as a concept has still not been fully fleshed out. And that's one of the things going on. So when you look at all the, Michael Aquino of the world.
I want to disagree with you. I want to disagree with you, but I lack the will. So maybe you're right.
What do you mean? What? all right. So
it's just like that was like a triple skipping stone pun. I know you can't keep up, man.
You are free to do that. You are free to do that, Mr. MacDonald, of course. This is not a court of law.
The pun is the lowest form of humor, but if you concatenate 2 or 3 together into one super pun, it's acceptable.
Yeah, I'm still not on that level yet, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to point out.
I said I think I want to disagree with you, but I lack the will, so maybe you're right. You get it now?
Yeah, but I thought sarcasm was the lowest one. Anyway, puns or sarcasm, whoever said that, not you personally, whoever came up with that, obviously didn't get sarcasm and puns. Because puns are fantastic. Now, I'm aging out into, dad jokes rule. I don't care if anyone groans and hates them. It's like, it's funny. I think that's the problem when you deal with comedy so much. You get so intelligent, become stupid, and you find the most stupidest things funny. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. But no,
not stupid things, simple things.
Well,
but there's beauty in simple things too.
Well, I actually said this to my mum. The difference between a teacher and a student. A student loves the complexity of something, and a teacher loves the simplicity of it. And as I get older, I love the simplicity of things. Like, just do this. But we could do this and this and this. Like, no, this. Move on. I don't have time to deal with all that crap. Bells and whistles and.
That was actually, all puns aside, that was actually an absolutely fascinating dissertation, Raz. Seriously, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for performing for the panel. We'll go back to you and we'll see if you've actually got your scholarship.
You see, the other time Bruce called me and asked me about the spiritual genetics. I'm like, oh, God, I need to get my notebooks out.
Well, there is a book called The Galactic Historian. That's a good starting point. I've got to read. I haven't actually read the proper book. I've read, was it second draft you sent me? So I don't think I read the third draft or the final draft. So, mind you, after reading the draft.
Honestly, Monty, and I'm not saying this, to sell a book. It changed dramatically. Like the final draft, some kind of magic entered, and it just became very unified and lyrical and poetic and much better than any previous draft.
Well, I do have a copy in the room with me right now. It's like, is the book in the room with you? Yes, it is. So I will read that. And because the draft that I read, it flowed, but it was just like I think I'll have a glass of water, and you turn on the tap and the iceberg that hit the Titanic had melted and come through the tap all at once. It's like, thump, like that's a lot of water. So I'm sure it's a type of book you have to read 6 or 7 times just to absorb everything in it. Mainly because instead of and here's a chapter that makes a point. No, it's like, here's 3 pages that make a point, and there's a whole chapter of 3 pages.
Yeah, in the end, nobody is going to understand everything in this book. I mean, I wrote the thing with Andrew, and I don't fully understand it. But like so much of what we call spiritual these cats are going to get it pretty soon, man. Like, I'm losing my patience. You see my boom mic moving? It's the cat.
The cat touched his boom mic. Someone's going to die.
Yeah. So, look, the book should not be approached on an informational basis, although the information is mind-boggling. It should be approached on an inspirational basis, right? So hopefully that's what the book achieves. It motivates people to do deeper work and more consistently, and that's something I'm very proud to be a part of, because quite literally, with what we all know now, everybody on this call, there's no hope for the world unless the next revolution is a spiritual revolution.
And an obscure reference, if you've watched the movie, in Australia it's called Flying High, but I think the rest of the planet it's called Aeroplane. The air stewardess or the attendant, the ladies that are on there, I don't know what they're called nowadays because of PC crap. Anyway, the hostess with the mostess is going around. Would you like something to read or something light? How about famous Jewish sports stars, and hands over a pamphlet? That's not the Galactic Historian. It's not a pamphlet. It's not like, I'll just read a couple of pages while I'm on the toilet. No. Yeah, you should a nice sunny day, find a lovely tree without birds in it, and just drift away.
You can store. Yeah. I mean, there is writing that, I think this is a kind of linguistic construct, and there is writing that when you read it, it makes you feel something, and a lot of the time it is when stuff's just super simple and written well, and a lot of the time when it does rhyme or it is in poetry, it is magic, and it makes you feel something. And there is a lot of writing doesn't do that.
And you notice where novels that get huge, where they break out of the readership, where I read books, that group. I don't read books, and I read Harry Potter because it got so popular, and it's a type of book. I don't know if it's a combination of the story, the way that the sentences are constructed, even down to the font on the page, but your eye just starts on the first letter of the first sentence, and it just slides all the way. You're not reading. It's like you're going down a very small, like a slide, like a water slide, and it just flows and flows and flows and flows. Did you know that Gone with the Wind was actually a novel? And I think the movie only took 2-3 years. The book came out. Now, obviously, it's the late 20s, early 30s. So books are huge. But it was so popular with the books that they made the movie. I really should read the book to see how it transitions. A better way, modern day version of it is the Outlander series. The first one of those came out, I think, 1990 or 95. There's 8 now, and it's been turned into a TV show. And the TV show, because of just restrictions and characters, and it's not 100%, but it gets the gist of it. You could even say that with Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson trilogy. It's based on Lord of the Rings. It's not actually 100% Lord of the Rings. But however, I could be wrong, but I don't think the Tolkien estate had realistically nothing wrong with anything in the Peter Jackson films.
Yeah, I don't think they had any problem. Yeah, I think that they were very pleased with what he did. I mean, the dude adored the books, right? Like I don't think there's a bigger fan base. Yeah, I don't think there's a bigger fan base in the world than Tolkien's. I mean, I'm not a huge fantasy guy, but that guy's a master storyteller, man. I did read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And then when I was working in Michigan, and I was this is about 2001, and I was driving back home every weekend to Toronto. I had about a 6-hour drive. I listened to the entire trilogy read aloud by an ensemble of actors from the Royal Shakespeare Company. I had to pull my minivan over at times and just cry a little bit. It was so moving. It was just unbelievable, right?
Well, yeah.
Something cool about that old radio show style.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what audiobooks are sort of tapping into. Like, this is tapped into, I know it's at the end of Stardust Ranch because I read it out loud. But is it the disembodied voice? Is that how you say it, Bruce?
Yeah.
You went from paper, reading books and paper, like the newspapers, then radio, and then silent movies and radio were very close. They're less than 20 years apart, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they finally figured out how to add sound, and they become talkies, which I think the first one was in 29.
Yeah. So there are 3 principal things that set up the Industrial Revolution. Number 1 is illumination at night. And nobody really stops and thinks about the effect that had on the human circadian rhythm, okay? I mean, before the illumination of cities at night, there was no 24-hour economy. I mean, there were taverns and stuff that stayed open by candlelight and lamplight and stuff like that, but illumination and electrification of cities changed everything. So the first thing is illumination. The second thing is the dislocated voice, and it begins with the radio. Okay, so everybody's sitting around this big wooden box over their fireplace on Saturday nights to listen to some national radio broadcast, and it created a sense of community. And the third thing is rapid transport, the invention of the automobile. And that took away horses and bicycles, and I mean, trains were around, but cars were much more autonomous, right? You could go wherever you want as long as they had a road. And everything we've done throughout the Industrial Revolution has just really been a permutation of one of those 3 things. So the dislocated voice is how we're having this show tonight and how we're talking to each other. We just do it a little bit differently now, and there's no long distance charges, and you guys can see my very, very handsome face on the camera here. But it's the same general principle, the projected dislocated voice. Hey, I'm hearing voices. Turn off the radio, you idiot.
Yeah, and the radio was so popular, like the whole family would crowd around, and it got to the point where I think TV started up, but I was about to say, do you remember? Are you aware of? Because I don't think anyone was you guys were alive in '38, unless you got some.
I remember seeing black and white pictures of people.
Yeah. Okay, yes, 1938 is real. We don't need. Okay, that exists, all right. However, Orson Welles from New York, I think it was on CBS. I think in October 1938, he did a version of War of the Worlds, and there was a disclaimer at the start, middle. Right? Yeah, and people thought that they were actually being invaded by Martians at the time, and that was the power of the radio as well as the people's imaginations. And if you want to go, I'm talking to the listener, not the panel. If you want to deep dive into psychology of how propaganda works and manipulating the public, there is a movie when what is it called? I think I've got I borrowed it from a certain website. Hang on, no, that's not it. There is a movie made about it, and let me. Oh no. And I'm Moofies. There we go.
Well, you're looking, talking about
the night that panicked America, and that's actually about it shows how they actually did it, like the sound effects for 1938, where like the lid of the cylinder that lands in Horsell Common, and it's supposed to be this massive thing, and it's all made out of stone, and realistically, it's a guy called Bob in the toilets. With a microphone, and he's opening an empty jar in the toilet bowl to get that sound and the reverb.
I love seeing old school people do Foley work like that. I was just going to say, talking about illumination, there's a guy who has used, I guess, the same technology that the US uses in to power their warships to make a little light for communities that don't have illumination. So he's made like a saltwater Miguel Majica or something like that. He's made like a little portable saltwater power light that generates light out of salt water for 45 days, which is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, because I'm amazed that idea has lasted, because you're getting energy from salt water. Now, if you apply that to an automobile,
I got to ask one more time, and I don't mean to pick on poor Cortek.
That's all right. I expect it.
What is with all the articles in the roundtable? Do you expect us to stop talking for 5 minutes and let radio silence come about Bruce, while we read the article? Or is it homework for when the show is done? Because I don't get it. And this last one, you're actually talking. You've got the mic, and at the same time, you're posting something.
May I interject as well? Yeah, may I interject for the listener? Cortek is like the Jamie of the group. I'm not Joe Rogan, but Joe Rogan has Jamie, and so when we talk about certain things, he finds articles and puts it into the chat. Where I got the impression it was for something to check out after the show, because not now.
But I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
I think you just need a second screen.
Yeah, you have. You get two. What are you, a nerd? Come on.
I used to have two, but I'm not on my laptop anymore here at my main desk, because only my Lenovo, Think Center, was able to accommodate this magnificent boom mic.
Yeah, I've got an extra screen. It was working fine, and then one day it wasn't, and all the Apple people, it's probably hardware. Like, yeah, okay. So what? The plug that it's in just decided to go, no, it doesn't work now. And like, really?
I listened to about the last, I don't know how many minutes of the roundtable before this one. And I just want to give a shout out to Why Not for standing his ground against those Christian dogmatist bullies, man. Because honestly, it's one of the things that crosses my mind just before I do your show every Tuesday night, Monty. It's just, oh God, it's Revolution Radio again. Hail Jesus, Emperor King, Palpatine Jesus. Just drives me crazy, man. And I just think people are getting sick of it, man. Just sick of it, you know. And what is so, I don't know why I always end up back on this topic when I'm on your show, Monty, but it just amuses me. What I find so offensive about the salvation doctrine, which is the aspect of the religion that I find really repugnant. The Gospels themselves sit beside anything I've ever read, anything I've ever meditated upon, and anything I've ever let into my heart. They're absolutely beautiful, okay? Maybe the best spiritual discourses the human race has ever been given, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's the salvation doctrine. Okay, so and this is part of the trick, and I want to help people who are pushing back on this at Rev Radio. Okay, this is why we find it offensive, because when you buy into salvation doctrine, you stop all other spiritual work and all other spiritual inquiry. You don't learn to meditate. You don't learn about the multiverse. You don't learn any of the stuff you need to learn to grow your consciousness. This religion and everything in the Abrahamic canon was created to stifle your spiritual growth, not aid it. Over.
And you can find something similar. The aliens will save us. No, it's the same savior complex type thing. It's like the true aliens, the aliens that probably come down and want to save you have an agenda and they're going to use you. The ones that actually want us to be saved, we have to save ourselves. Remember, I haven't spoken to him in a long time. He hasn't been on the show for a while. Viking. He doesn't say, the aliens are going to save us. He's never said that at all from my memory. He does say that they're rooting for us and, we're rock stars and they're watching and they're waiting and, hoping and, they're hanging around to see when we actually go, wait a minute, and become our full potential.
So you see, there's a lot of truth in things, but again, there's one of the best lines in the Galactic Historian book is that you can't get the whole truth about something unless you get both the context right and the details right. If you get one of those two things wrong, especially in spiritual matters, you're not going to come up with the right perspective, the right answer, the right consciousness. Okay, and so what happened with these religions is they create a context that is so stifling. Now, let's look at some of the stuff that has begun to grow in the Christian world, like mushrooms on a dead tree stump. Actually, mushrooms isn't a good analogy because they're actually good for you, but like some kind of bacteria in the woods. And the principal one that comes to mind is flat Earth. Now, there's aspects of this that contextually are right. So the theory is that we're in some kind of dome and we're cut off from the universe. The fact that it's flat is a separate issue. I don't want to talk about it. But that part, Monty and Raz and Cortek, we all know to be true. This is a quarantined planet. Okay. Now, what's going to happen as this psychic net around the planet? Michael Sarion was talking about this 15 years ago. And this net is starting to break now. And this is why people are having all these UFO experiences and everything, because these are natural parts of living in a solar system and living in a galaxy. You're supposed to have all of these experiences and communications when you reach the level of the sentient hominid on your planet, the bipedal, standing erect hominid, okay? And that's what we are on this planet, the human being. It hasn't always been the human being. We've had the giants, we've had other forms of life here, but right now the dominant hominid is the human being. It's our birthright to have connection with the galaxy, to be able to communicate with other races. And this is another thing that the Abrahamics have shut down. Not for themselves, those dudes at the Sanhedrin know what I'm talking about, folks. The Jesuits know what I'm talking about. They just don't want you to know. Okay.
Yeah, Pentagon came out
getting a little passionate here on a Tuesday.
Pentagon came out with UAP, calling it UAP footage now, and no one really bothered to. No one cares. First congressional hearing on UFO in 50 years, and it was all about drones and foreign actors.
Yeah, I think you were on the show still because, you've had 2 weeks off. Well, you travelled far, so you've definitely moved from one hemisphere to another. They changed it from UFO to UAP, and they can get around the whole thing of we've been lying for 70 years. And have you noticed that? Where that was never addressed. at these meetings and congressional investigations of like, these things are real, and it's the third time they've mentioned it, and the media still hasn't picked it up.
Yeah. We're supposed to just gloss over the fact that during the last 2 years that the media was completely lying to us, and now we're still supposed to believe them.
Well, and also by changing the initials, they can get past the whole thing of UFOs don't exist. Well, no, they're U of A, whatever the friggin' thing is now. 70 years of lying and destroying lives and everything else like that, where if you actually did have a encounter or a meeting, even abduction, the mainstream version response would be, "Oh, you're insane." And they've locked it down like that.
Ship you off to a mental clinic.
Yeah,
unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Unidentified aerial. Isn't that a small country in the Middle East? No, that's
surely
the
we should be going.
Yes.
Surely we should be going for less syllables. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I know. No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the gloss over the 70 years of destroying people's lives and everything else like that, and it's like you've been lying, as well as Bruce just said, it's a natural form of existence in this galaxy. I'll use the example of Bashar, not the leader of Syria. What sent him down his path to where he is now is, I believe, was actually the entity that he channels. But he saw a UFO. I think it was twice before. He was allowed. Before he incarnated in his current life, there was a permission slip to get me to go into channeling and channeling Bashar. Daryl Anker saw 2 or 3 UFOs in his lifetime at the start, and that was So who knows where some people, they have no connection to aliens because you'll find out later, or you're out. You may have an interaction or a contact because that was part of the soul contract plan before you actually incarnated. Yes, that's a phone, Bruce. Thank you. Is that the iPhone 13?
Is that the iPhone Mini? These ones seem to fit the bill of what was called the Foo Fighter back in the Second World War to me. These little round drone-looking things.
Tell me something, people. Do you guys, all of you here, do you guys believe humanity is ready for this alien thing?
I think that there's no choice anymore, Raz. I think that's an excellent question, and I think that there's going to be a separation of the souls on this planet. Some souls will be going to another 3D reality to continue the lessons there, and a certain portion will be going to another dimensional existence.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it's anyone's job here to really judge who's ready for what, and that's where we've been for too long.
It's all in people it's thinking, all in your vibration.
They can't handle it. Oh, they can't. It's not.
Yeah, well, that's
their
what the
job
did
to stop the dimension.
Yeah. But then you see, look, the popularity of any form of Star Wars, and I don't mean the Reagan era missile defense system. The actual the movies and the popularity that tapped into the 12-year-old child and everybody. Because Star Wars is for kids. It's like, yeah, and yet you look at all the photos of them lining up in 1977, and 90% of them are adults. So how is it made for kids?
Yeah, and people had something they could take away with something, some beautiful kind of words of a mentor that could help them, live a better life and seemed like in a positive way. That's what people found so amazing about the first Star Wars. That's why the children of the people who watch the first ones watch these latest ones with no content, all that content stripped out, and go, I don't know what you guys are going on about. This is just like. And
then there's an element of soul connection. Of like, oh yeah, that seems familiar, and so on and so forth. So humanity as a whole, in blunt versions of the words, maybe. As different sections of humanity, yes, there are people like there would be, but other people will probably just freak out, like how hardcore zealots in religion, because if Marvin the Martian turns up on the White House lawn I remember doing a show with Andrew Bartzis about this, the ramifications, and he was going through, like, I think we got up to 10 or 15 points of this will change, and Andrew said, and then the religions would change because their view of the world and the heavens and so on and so forth. And then I added, and the atheists would have a double whammy because
my God,
look at the size of his head, Becky. No, wait, sorry, I'm channeling.
Oh my God. I just came across the most incredible news of quite some time.
Well, hurry up, we've got about a minute to go.
Well, on June 9th, ticket sales begin for a Radiohead appearance in San Jose, Costa Rica.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's a perfect time
to some.
end. Yeah, if you like the old head of radio, go see them. Hopefully they play their old stuff, but that's just me. We're coming in the end of Planet Collingwood. Thank you for the crossover. I've done 3 hours and my cat's yelling at me, so thank you, Cortek, for finally coming home.
Thank you.
I'm proud. Dad's proud. And Raz, as always, as well as Bruce. So we've had fun. And there's all, the 2 hours will go up on YouTube. You're listening to Planet Collingwood here on Revolution Radio Studio A. We'll be back in 6 hours and 22 hours. I love you from afar, and we'll keep it that way. See you soon, everyone.
Hey, yo.